Hello, you're very welcome. I'm delighted to be here to moderate the first of two panels that we're going to have this afternoon. And I think we've had the scene very expertly set by our first speakers. So what we're going to talk about now is how we can spearhead this COVID-19 recovery through digital skills, and what are some of the challenges and solutions that we can discuss that we've experienced and tried out and hopefully had success with. So we have 5 panelists today from different backgrounds and with different interests: large multinational sector, the SME sector, the public sector, recruitment and diversity. And we will examine some of the issues around the capacity of digital skills education to help Europe to recover from the ravages, and I think they are ravages really, of COVID-19 and the lockdowns. And this work, these ravages really have incentivized companies to maybe to go digital faster than they would have done if the normal trajectory had continued, and to seek new business solutions. And as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. So I'm going to ask a few questions of the panelists and hopefully get them to pick up on what each other is saying, and try and get a little bit of a debate and a discussion going, so we can see where there are common interests, etc. We'll talk about challenges and solutions, as I said. So I'm going to start first by addressing each of the panelists in turn. And so just so we get a little sense of where they're coming from. So if we can listen to what their approach to this is, we'll be able to figure out the synergies and the lessons that we can learn from each other. So if I may, I would like to start with Isabella. So Isabella is representing, I believe, AWS, Amazon Web Services, and also Digital Europe. So you've got a very unique perspective because you've got a very broad remit and a range of experiences. And I suppose from the corporate point of view, your company produces digital services and certified tools in certified training, I suppose, in digital tools. So I wonder, from your perspective, what really has changed from the start of the pandemic relating to the demand for digital skills?
Of course, and thank you very much for inviting me today for the panel. Really glad to be here. Indeed, from Amazon Web Services perspective, we only can see an increased demand for talent. If you look at the numbers of job vacancies that are open throughout the European Union, just to compare the status from just the beginning of the pandemic, March through to April, May, we have seen about 80,000 open job vacancies with relation to, or with demand for cloud skills. Today is more than 92,500 job vacancies. So this is just growing. The demand is growing, and since then, it is more than adamant. The digital skills gap that had only been increased since we all know what pandemic has done for digital transformation. Probably haven't been done for the past couple of years by many digital leaders. And so as a fact of that, not only the demand for skills had been increased, but also increased demand for cloud services in general. So from AWS perspective, and I would also argue that this is what I'm saying on behalf of majority of the industry, we've been very busy for the past couple of months trying to respond to all the needs of our customers and partners.
Great, thank you. That's great. So just to move to a slightly different perspective then, I might talk to Sebastiano. So Sebastiano, you might just give us a little bit, maybe first of all, of context about the SME the Digital SME Alliance, so that we know where you're coming from. And I think the perspective perhaps is different, but maybe we might be surprised if there are some synergies with what Isabella has spoken about.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Hi, Mary. Yes, indeed. Okay. As you probably know, I'm speaking on behalf of the European Digital SME Alliance, which is, largest Europe association of SMEs in the IT sector. So we are really talking about companies that are, at the front runners of the digital revolution, and certainly companies that are in the greatest need of ICT skilled people. So, broadly speaking, I think, what Isabella said is agreeable. Now we have our own perspective. Of course, we are not the larger companies. So SMEs, are, a big strength, but they also are different from the larger companies, especially in the capacity to attract skilled labor force. Of course, very often talented people, more easily go to a larger company than to an SME. But that doesn't mean that SMEs are not good employers or that they're not very innovative, because what we see, they very often, they are at the forefront of new technologies. SMEs are not just the laggards of the revolution, especially in Europe. We believe SMEs are our strength, because we have thousands and thousands of IT companies, what we call the digital SMEs, that are those who actually transfer the digital technologies to other businesses. So they are the enablers of the digital revolution. If you allow me, Mary, I have one single slide. I don't want to make it long, but just one single slide to show basically the main messages, the main things that we think are important in this conversation.
Okay.
So what I just said, the role of the digital SMEs as a great pool of ICT professional skills that are there to drive the other sectors in the digital transformation. So Europe has this, and they are a strength. So we should consider this, several tens of thousands of companies that are there, and they are the front runners of the revolution. Having said that, very connected to this point is the fact that the need for ICT professional skills in Europe is fundamental when we think about things like the digital sovereignty. If we do not have the skills, we are not going to be digitally sovereign. So we are not going to be able to control the technologies. We're going to have to buy technologies from others, and we're not going to be able to develop the technologies ourselves. Moving quickly, another great idea that has been flagged in the last years is this concept of a public-private partnership, because we think Europe needs, a strong coalition of the different parties, industry users, industry providers, citizens, education providers, etc., and government, to work together, to have a common vision and common engagement to solve the problem. Once again, there are many, many tools out there. Some of them we have seen even today, but there is not the single one-stop shop. So, the citizens and the people in the businesses, they don't know where to go. So we really think this one-stop shop, which is probably ideally going to be provided by the platform of the Digital Skills and Job Coalition, which was mentioned earlier by Jacob, maybe that is something that is very much needed, in our opinion. To finish, another couple of points, we think we need much more participation of SMEs in EU-funded research. Why? Because if we do so, we give resources to our innovative SMEs to be able to attract and retain talent. Okay, we see many larger companies and universities are keeping the talent because they are able to pay this talent using the funds. And we think SMEs, which are now participating maybe 10 or 15%, the recipients of the EU funding for research, they should go up to 50% at least, because they are 99% of the economy, right? So they should be at least a recipient of 50% of the funds for digital innovation. To finish with, we think it's a global issue, so Europe should basically be able to attract skilled people from other regions, as well as Andre told earlier that the US is a great magnet, and India is a great producer of talent. Why can't Europe have a strategy in that respect? Okay, and to finish with the gender gap. we see men are much more present in the profession than women. But in the end, this is a bad thing, but maybe it's also an opportunity, because we have many skilled, good university educated women in our society. Just they don't go back to work because they want to have a maternity, they want to stay with kids. But if we provide a better life work balance, then maybe we can attract back these women to the labor force.
Okay.
Just to conclude, this is maybe part of the solutions. Thank you, Mary, anyway, for the time.
Thank you very much. That's great, and that's really comprehensive. And I might take a little bit of issue with your last point about the women not wanting to go back and not wanting to play their part. And I see Gillian nodding her head, so I'm going to call her in, because I know this is an area of her interest. And I'm not pigeonholing you into this area, Gillian, because I know you have a much broader range of professional experience. But maybe it would be an interesting one to start with.
Yeah, I wanted to say that my perspective on the whole COVID thing, and it does include the women in tech, is around the fact that, whilst we have, and you're right, Sebastiano, we have not many women in technology. In fact, only 1 in 6 of IT specialist jobs across Europe are female. This is mad. We're wasting so much opportunity. However, during COVID, the women are the ones who, when you're locked down, end up looking after the kids. And therefore, the employers will see them as not being enormously productive, or, they're not ambitious enough to stop thinking about the children whilst they have a job, which is really not the case. We're all in this together. And we need to recognise as employers that if that's happening to the women, we should give them a chance to flex around their work-life balance. And it could be that they care for the kids during the time when kids need to be cared for. And sadly, they end up working at 10 o'clock at night. But if you guide them by objectives, and if you assess them against that set of objectives, then we can see that women will provide the work that we need from them during this time. So we shouldn't see them as the first people out of the door if we're having to make cutbacks. We should be looking at this already very small proportion of the resource as being incredibly valuable. But the second point, and I agree with you again, Sebastiano, we need to find ways to increase the numbers of women. And at CPIS, we've been working on something we've called the Diverse IT Charter, which is a framework and route map to help organisations, be they SME or large organisations who are usually further on in the game, but help organisations understand what you need to do to attract and retain a more diverse workforce. So I'm sure that that will prove useful to you. And we have a kind of launch date on the 26th of November where there'll be another event for that.
Thank you, Gillian. Thank you. And we'll come back and talk to you more about the industry experience as well, because I know that you've got great things to say about that as well. So I'm just touching back again on something else that Sebastiano said. I would like to talk to Carm, please. And Carm is, I suppose, representing the Maltese Digital Skills and Jobs Coalition, but also the eSkills Malta Foundation. And with that public sector hat on, do you have a view on what Sebastiano was saying about the public-private partnerships and this kind of bigger collaboration in terms of addressing the skills needs and the training, etc., that we need for the digital economy?
Yes, totally agree with Sebastiano. Of course, even our organization is in fact a coalition, which means that it's made out of collaborations. So we found that very important, and it definitely brings up the outcome. Having said that, collaborations is not something that is needs to be taken very lightly, because it's difficult to achieve, actually, with all the work going on. We all know that in the digital space, people are extremely busy. They've got projects, they've got this and they've got that, and therefore an extra effort is needed many times to engage with each other. From our point of view, the collaborations that, for instance, we do for instance, we're very much in touch, for instance, with the digital. We call it the digital sector, not the ICT sector, because obviously these days the ICT sector is very core. But then you really find out that there's around 20 to 30% of the people are employed not in the core stuff. There could be digital marketers, they could be. So that's all part of digital, and they are all needed. And therefore, we actually engage with them to create initiatives. I see, for instance, Isabella, she's from Amazon. We lately, for instance, collaborated with Amazon to actually fund and offer 3 cloud courses in Malta. One, to try and get more people into the digital sector by maybe offering the basic courses to the unemployed, maybe, or people who might want to shift, but then there are the other courses. So we do this with for instance, with Amazon, very successful. We'll be launching this very soon. We then, on the other level, we talk about the society, which is totally based on collaborations, where we're talking about emerging technologies. We heard Jakub and we have Sebastian, how important this is. And therefore, we also must not forget the society. And let's say a tech-savvy society will help both the ICT sector and the SME sector. The more tech-savvy citizens are, the more able employees we will have, both in the SMEs and also in the ICT sector. Now, remember, things are very much shifting, overlapping, connecting. So when we talk about the core ICT sector, sometimes I'm faced with very much technical people, but however, they are not in tune with latest technology, which are society-based technology, with these things that we're doing now, and they find it difficult. We collaborate with education there again to give training to actually in not just in the ICT roles that there are, regarding careers, but also especially in COVID, to help them to work and teach online, which is a big challenge for teachers. I mean, I don't know other people, but in Malta it was a shock. All of a sudden, schools were closed. There was mayhem. So I do credit them, because they came up to speed very quickly. But so many issues came up. So many issues. So it's important, yes, collaborations in every sphere that Sebastiano, Isabella, and Gillian. Obviously, we're very into the women part of things, and we carried out studies. So it's important.
Okay, thank you, Carmen. And you've made the point very strongly that the collaboration and the public-private collaboration and the large companies and the small companies, that they all have their part to play. But you did mention schools and education, and when you mention education, that is an ideal time to bring Alexa in. So Alexa Joyce represents Microsoft here today. And Alexa, you're in the education field within your role. And you work with digital education, I believe, from right up from the school sector, right up through to university level. And I'm wondering, do you concur with Carm that there are challenges in education now, or do you see it as an opportunity, the lockdown and the digital education, do you see it as an opportunity for enhancing the outcomes of education, particularly in the digital skills area?
I think that's a great question, and I think the answer is it's both. Firstly, it's been tremendously hard for educators and for decision makers within education systems to be agile, to deploy new technologies at a speed that they've never had to deal with before, and to deal with just getting that vast number of students and teachers up and running, and even being able to access tools and to use them every day. And so I think we've really seen two phases to the response that's come from education systems as we've partnered with them around the world. And I think that the level of partnership is beyond anything we've ever seen before between the technology world and education. This partnership is beyond question now. It's something which is seen as business as usual for the schools. So in the beginning, I think we very much saw this emergency pedagogy, as I call it, where it was pretty much throw technology at the problem and see what sticks. And I think it led to a lot of suboptimal learning experiences for students, and a lot of difficult times for teachers because they had to learn so many new things at once. And I think it was really telling that when you look at research done by OECD around the systems that were most resilient when it came to the pandemic, those were the systems that actually had a really good digital transformation strategy in place already. So they already had a cohort of trained teachers who could be mentors, who could support others. They already had close partnerships with the technology industry so that they could scale up existing platforms rather than having to start from scratch. And also they were centralized in their approach, because I think very often in Europe, we've taken the angle that each individual education institution should make its own technology decisions. But that's a huge burden on the schools, because then they have to go through the process of understanding what their decision is for, what the constraints are, what the issues are. Whereas those countries that put in place platforms which had options for teachers to choose from just reduced the barrier for so many schools because they didn't have to go through that whole setup phase. Now we're at the point of bigger opportunity because everyone's kind of gone through the pain, and now we're at the point where we're saying, what have we learned and what could we be doing better? And so it's leading to much richer conversations around how can digital pedagogy be more inclusive? How can we make tools more social? How can we get that glue working that makes learning a rich and engaging experience for every single student? But I think we had to go through the pain to get to that point of opportunity.
Yeah, excellent. That's really good. I love the idea that, you know, we had to go through the difficult times and we have come through that now, and there have been lots of lessons learned that we can bring forward. I suppose the challenge is to make sure that as many educators and students and workers who are being educated get the opportunity to avail of all of that experience, which is really important. So I'm going to come back to Sebastiano now in the area of education and in upskilling and in training for skills, because there are lots of different ways in which we can get the skilled people that we need. We can depend on the traditional university sector. We can look at industry certification and training, like Isabella spoke about, and we'll bring her back to talk some more in a few minutes. Or there are lots of innovative ways, sort of ways where university education is being turned on its head, and there are courses with no tutors and lectures with no professors and degrees with no exams and all kinds of different things. So what's your view about the best way to upskill our workforce?
Well, yeah, it's an interesting question, because, yeah, we do hear indeed a lot of talks by certain parts of the industry that, somehow, including from many SMEs, by the way, that, we should somehow replace the traditional and a bit slow-paced education system, the universities, with industry certifications. And I must say that may look good as a kind of short-term, immediate solution. But I still think we still think that is only part of the solution. It cannot be that we give away our very strong and very solid education system to the private sector entirely. I mean, we need to partner with the private sector. We need the private sector to be really working together with our universities to produce the workforce of the future. But we cannot give away the control of our education sector to the private industry. At least we need to be very cautious in this partnership, because there is a role for the public sector, there is a role for the education, there is a role for industry. And the balances are quite important to maintain. Don't forget, we are in an important strategic discussion in Europe about our digital sovereignty. We cannot forget that, because whatever decision we're going to take now, at the European or at the national level, this is going to have impacts for the future. Maybe we won't see the impact in a year or in 2 years, but we will see it in 10 years. Okay. Yeah. So before we decide to lock ourselves in certain proprietary platforms, to be very clear, we need to think twice. It may be good for now because they may be offered at a fantastic price, but what's going to happen after? What are going to pupils? What are they going to learn? Which technologies are they going to understand? Which, is it going to be proprietary? Is it going to not proprietary, etc.? Open source, non-open source. Let's really find the right balances, because what is good in the short term may not be perfect in the longer term.
Okay, so Isabella, over to you to defend the industry certification in light of the digital and skills sovereignty that Sebastiano was talking about.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for that input, Sebastiano. And honestly speaking, I couldn't agree with you more. It's all about partnership. Yeah. And more so than ever, it's also about balancing the speed in which the industry need the talent on the market with the quality that can be provided by the universities. So I don't think any industry player would say we should just close the universities and give it to the private providers. This has never been the case. We actually need that balance, and we need the partnership so that one and the other work together in order to produce that talent that the market needs. I think what is critical in that respect is the understanding that the modern curriculum should just more be orientated on what the market needs from the graduates, as opposed to producing lots of very interesting faculties, but not necessarily having enough demand on the market, say anthropologists or psychologists for that matter. Today, the ICT sector, the digital sector, basically sucks in any talent that appears on the market. And that's where we should be looking at how to modernize the curriculum all across the board, not just computer science per se, but inject this digital component and digital skills in every faculty, so that whatever career you may want to choose, you get this basic understanding. You can function not just by being able to use computer and internet, but really also accelerating and being able to maybe code, maybe develop an application on your own if you're a marketeer, for that instance, right? Or be a data miner if you are doing some data analytics, right? Not just looking at the Excel spreadsheets, let's say. So I think really the core aspect of this partnership is balancing. And I'm actually really happy to say that, well, in one of the previous sessions, as mentioned about Digital Europe winning the software services skills alliance blueprint. AWS is one of the associate partners in this consortium, and I'm really super excited about the fact that within that consortium we actually gathered both private training providers and universities, as well as vocational training centers, to work together to create that balanced curriculum that will help educate in a timely manner, in a shorter time frame, maybe then, let's say, 5 years master's degree at the university, and catch up with that demand on the job market in Europe. I'll stop here. I probably could speak about it for hours, but I know that we are very limited in time.
Absolutely. Well, you bring me, your discussion is bringing me right back to Gillian, because Gillian, with, from the point of view of the BCS and the professional body for IT, and also with your IT recruitment hat on, can I ask you just to talk maybe a little bit about the skills that are needed, the certification that's needed, not just for people entering into the profession or into jobs in the general IT sector, but as they progress through their careers, perhaps? Oh, you're muted. Great.
Thanks, Mary. Yeah, it's really important that we not only think about the graduates, which is, attraction of young people into the industry is hugely important. But I think we need to be thinking about all of those people who used to work in IT, but don't work in IT anymore. And Sebastiano mentioned this early on, that there was this belief that women left the industry and didn't come back because they were having so much fun doing childcare. And there's a whole bunch of women out there. There's a whole bunch of people over 50. So one of the things that we notice as we look around the industry is it's hugely young, and there are lots of companies where the whole workforce is under 35. Yeah. And you wonder what's happened to all of those 50-year-olds who, sure, they used to work in PL1 or COBOL, but there are some intrinsic commonalities in the skills that they've got. And we've kind of tossed them on the scrap heap because they've hit 50. They don't do this in academia. In academia, they don't get rid of people because they hit 50. And I think we really need to produce programs in collaboration. And your Isabella, your vocational programs sound like the right kind of thing. We need programs which will bring people back, because that's a quicker access to skills. They already understand how to work in industry, and they understand the fundamentals of coding. They just need to learn a new language. And I believe that we have to understand that there's so much potential there. So there's the retired or the early retired or those who've moved away, but there are also the crossovers. So the people who, as maybe Isabella mentioned, they may be working with spreadsheets, but actually don't realize that they've got these amazing technical skills and that they can build a pivot table, and wow, could we take them further? And so, and my own example is a secretary whilst I was working in IBM technical training who crossed over and stopped being a secretary and was writing IBM Red Books within 3 years. This is entirely possible for lots and lots of people, and we should go there for skills.
I think that's a really good point about the reskilling and the crossovers, as you say, and people moving from one job to another higher job, or even people moving parallel, to a job but upskilling themselves in the IT sector. And so I'm just wondering, Sebastiano, from the point of view of the SMEs, is that something that you would see as being maybe a good way of getting more people with the skills that are needed?
Well, yes, indeed. I mean, we need a strategy. It's obvious that we have an issue, especially with ICT professional skills. We do have an issue which is particularly severe for our SMEs. As I said earlier, it is less of a problem, if you allow me, for the very big companies, because they are very often perceived as better employer, whether they are or not, but they are perceived in a certain way in the market, right? Whereas very often our SMEs, they do have a problem to attract and retain the best talent. And I think that, a little bit of flexibility in the market on both sides, because I think companies can do a lot to provide schemes to people that, help them retrain, help them stay in the labor force. As I mentioned earlier, this idea of work-life balance that was mentioned by some others I think it's very important. And our sector in particular wants to show the way, because it's obviously easier for an IT company to provide, more flexible working schemes than for a company in another sector. But we think that definitely, there is a lot of potential out there. It may be parents, not just mothers, who have been busy with childcare and don't want to go back to the workforce because they don't think they will have enough time to do it. But there is this great pool of educated people out there which can be retrained, which can go back to the workforce, and we need to take advantage of it as employers. We need to. We need to pull the talent where it is. We have, as Europe, as a system, we have invested indeed a lot of money to train people in public universities. And then these people don't go back to the workforce because we have sometimes rules that make it too difficult. So I think we should really make an effort in that respect to understand that, in the long term, we all have a benefit if everyone is able to stay in the workforce.
And I think, that it makes the point really that, it's about people and giving individual people some great sense of purpose. Because when we upskill people and we move them to new and more exciting and more important roles, perhaps, we're actually doing something for them as individuals, and we're developing their self-esteem, their self-confidence. And it's about this notion of the digital economy helping citizens to have a better experience of life overall, and I think that's really, really critical.
Marie, let me just add one thing, that I think Europe, not just me, but many people understand that Europe, if we want to stay on top of the digital revolution, if we want to maintain our wealth and our position in the world, we need more and more to invest in people. Because we need to be an innovation economy. Otherwise, others will do it, and the value will go elsewhere. So we only have a future if we invest in the people. Of course, the digital sector, the digital skills are one excellent example. I mean, we have the example of Malta with Carmel in the last years. Malta has done great things because it has been able to develop a strong digital industry, attract skilled people, invest in skills. And this is a good recipe for the success of the country. And I think Europe should do the same. If we don't, and Andrea showed a very nice slide earlier, whereby he was trying to essentially show where different countries stand in terms of skills, ICT, especially ICT professional skills. And, we saw the countries from Europe, like mine, like Italy, according to the DESI, is very low in terms of skills. And guess what? Economy isn't doing great. So there is, quite easy to demonstrate that there is a correlation between the availability of skilled people and the performance in economics. And
okay. Great, thank you. I just want to come back to Alexa for a comment, and then I'm going to go to Carm. So Alexa, I was wondering, did you have a comment on what Sebastiano was saying, or the way the conversation has been going around investing in people, and the importance of developing people for their own sakes as well as for the sake of the industry that they're supporting?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's two key things. One is people leave the industry for many reasons, but one of the reasons that I think particularly women have been leaving the industry, but also more diverse populations more broadly, whether it's leaving already when they're in the first year of computer science degrees, whether it's in the workplace, we have to take a look at ourselves as IT industry and as IT academia. Are we welcoming? Are we encouraging non-traditional people to stay in the industry? And the answer by and large at the moment is no. And so we actually have to be rethinking, what are we teaching? How are we teaching? How do we reinforce particularly that first year of university where a lot of people are to science?
No.
We hear you, Sebastiano, yes.
Okay.
And so I think that issue has to be tackled, and that we teach in a more inclusive way and we work in a more inclusive way that's more empathic. I mean, at Microsoft, we've been working tremendously hard on cultivating empathy, building allyship, creating an environment which is welcoming, and that is absolutely fundamental. Then secondly, in terms of government policy, I think we know that individual learning accounts work. Singapore has shown that it works. France has shown that it works. We should be doing it now. We shouldn't be doing it after feasibility studies and discussions. We should be prioritizing this as an immediate action. And we should also be thinking about the fact that our universities are struggling right now. Because of COVID, they can't recruit international students. They need to find ways to continue to keep up student numbers. How can we encourage universities to be much more hubs that can enable that shorter course, more vocationally focused type of training that people need to have to help them transition within the workforce, no matter what age they are, and not focus only on traditional undergraduate master's type of training, but become true hubs for the wider community as well.
Absolutely key point, I think, there. Focusing on the shorter courses, professional development and all of that. So Carm, we're just getting very close to the top of our hour, or the half hour. So I'm just wondering if you could maybe just give us a notion from the coalition point of view, the Digital Skills and Jobs Coalition, about how important it is to be cognizant of the skills of all sectors of society. Yes, certainly the citizens and the digital skills of workers in general, but also bringing into the picture the importance of the very, very high level advanced skills to bring our economy forward. You're muted, just unmute, please.
Okay, yes, very good question. And I mean, on an organization like ours, which we handle, let's say, a wide umbrella, including advanced digital skills, we are always preaching with Jakub might know this, with the digital skills and jobs that, hey, listen, fine, you're recognizing this, but we need to recognize it more, because at the end of the day, professionalism is key to let's say the growth of the industry and of the economy, and everything, So even when we're talking about Amazon and we're talking about Microsoft, and by the way, we do collaborate with Microsoft quite a bit. Professionalism is key. So we find a lot of courses, and even I have to say, even in SME courses and also in academic courses, the professionalism type of ethics, the methods, maybe they don't give it many times a lot of importance or enough importance, So this is also a key issue. When we talk about education, obviously there are very good examples like the British Computer Society, ICS, and I'm a person who went through the BCS, rather than academic. So, and I can say that I'm over the top of other people. So, and it's a perfect example, because institutions, for instance, they are more focused on, they are closer many times towards the, many times actually towards the industry, because the people who teach that is actually within the industry. Now,
Okay.
we have to acknowledge, Mary, as well, that in education is changing, and there were at times becoming professor from being a bachelor's and a master's and a PhD. They stay. Now it is changing. It is changing.
Thank you, Carm. Thank you very much. Listen, we've gone over our time and we need to move to the next session. But I first of all want to say thank you all so much for your insights. I've just noted 4 topics that I think came up, repeatedly. The notion of investing in people and being inclusive, digital sovereignty. Sebastiano, I do think that came through loud and clear. The importance of skills for all levels. We need skills for citizens and skills for professionals, and we have to collaborate in order to make that happen. And collaboration in different modes of delivery of education and training, I think, is key to bringing us forward. Listen, thank you all so much. We're going to move into the next session now, so let's